Hi, grade sevens. I am missing you guys and I can't wait until we can see each other again, and it seems that that is soon if you will be joining us at school. I know that I've been giving you a lot of reading in history. Unfortunately, that's what history is. You have to read a lot of information. And so I just wanted to quickly go over these pages because it would be a terribly boring video if I just read them to you. So I'm on page 136 of your textbook, which is the pages for today. And I just wanted to quickly discuss the different headings. So the first part is reasons for using slave labor. So why did they need slave labor? So it says the plantation owners in America did not have enough people to work on their vast plantations. So remember, vast means very big. So slave traders brought slaves from West Africa so that they could work hard on the plantations in the American South. So what was slavery? Slavery is an example of extremely brutal behavior. So we see that it existed in Africa before. We've discussed that now. So before it existed and they took these slaves to America, it existed in Africa as well. So when the Europeans started to settle in different places in the world, they started to need labor to help them do this. And then if we just quickly look at the bulleted points, it says slaves that were taken from West Africa to America were they were treated as a piece of property, so they would sell them amongst each other or trade them. They weren't treated as human beings. They were treated with extreme brutality. That means that they were very brutal and ugly and mean to them. And they were slaves for life, and their children became slaves too. And they were forced to work, and they didn't get earned money, and they had no rights, and they weren't allowed to learn how to read or write. And if we go to page 137, it says how slaves were captured, sold, and transported. So they were kidnapped by slave traders from their homes in West Africa. And so they would just wake up one night and they would be stolen from their houses, and they'd never see their families again. Okay, and so the slave traders set up bases on the west coast where they would exchange the African captives for other things. And then they would put them in a prison called a barracoon. And then that's where they would keep them until they had enough or were ready to ship them off. So the conditions on a slave ship were also so terrible that many of them didn't make it to Europe because they didn't look after them on the ship because they didn't really care much. They would use a red iron, those that you see sometimes they're using on animals, and they would brand them and burn it into their skin. So they were treated very brutally. So if I just want to have a look at the different sources, especially with you guys, because this is what the next activity is based on. So let's have a look quickly at the keywords, and it says headquarters or centers from which slaves traders were worked. These were bases. Captives were people who have been captured. Barracoons are slave warehouse or an enclosure where they kept the slaves temporarily, like I said before, they were ready to ship them off. And to brand is to burn with a hot iron to show ownership. All right, so the first source we I have over here is source C, and it says a slave tells his story of capture. So this is an excerpt from perhaps a letter or a book or something that was compiled. And this looks like a book if we have a look here of what it was like to be a slave. Then source D is a drawing of a slave barracoon. So this is kind of what it looked like. If you look at this, the slaves are inside that little house there. And then this is a slave ship. So as you can see, there was not much space. They were piled in there, and they would fit as many as they could on this ship to get them to Europe. The next one was the slave market. Once they got to wherever they were going, America or wherever, they would be auctioned off like anything, just like property. They would be made to stand on show, and so they would check and see, are they strong? Will they be able to do the physical labor that they need? And whoever would bid the most money would get the slave. So this is a drawing of a slave market, source F. Source G was a newspaper advertisement for a slave market. And then source H is a story of a slave market. So this is 12 Years a Slave. There's also a movie called 12 Years a Slave, and this is also telling you about it, what a slave market was like. Page 139 talks about the number of slaves that were taken to America, and then also they were there to get all these raw materials such as sugar and tobacco. And so this paragraph here will tell you what all of these were used for. And so if we think about it, you know, the people in America were able to sell these things for a lot of money, and they didn't have to pay for, they would pay for the slave maybe once, and they never had to pay them wages. So they would end up making a lot of money. All right, guys, good luck with activity 2. As I said, it's very much based on the sources. So if you are answering a question about the source, my suggestion is to first go to the source, look at the source and read the source, and then answer the questions. Good luck.